Hi guys, Anthony Peluso here, CEO and founder of Wealth for Life. If you're watching this video, it's because the construction of your home right now is either in pre-construction or construction phase. The video you're about to watch is a video that I recorded on the 16th of May, 2022 with one of our builders, AHB Group, the founding member, Pas Garofalo, and the president of the Master Builders Association of Victoria, Mark Little. Now, the reason we're sending this video to you is to give you an understanding of what's currently going on in the real estate and construction industry. Now, please keep in mind, this video is not to give you an excuse or a justification as to why maybe your house has been delayed or why construction is taking longer than normal. It's to give you an understanding of the entire industry. So what Pasquale, or Paz as we call him, and Mark are going to talk about is not what's reflective of just their business, but the industry as a whole, okay? And what we ask when you watch this video is for some compassion, some empathy, and some understanding, okay? The industry right now is going through unprecedented times where supply chain disruptions and labor shortages have created a bit of havoc, not just within the real estate and construction industry, but throughout most of Australia in many industries, okay? So the video you're about to watch, I've asked the guys the hard questions, the questions that you've been wanting to ask, and now you're going to get it directly from the horse's mouth. AHB Australia are the second biggest builder in Victoria, okay? And Mark Little, as I said, represents the Master Builders Association. You couldn't ask for people in a more prominent position to talk to you about what's going on in the construction and real estate industry, okay? Now, again, please keep in mind, it's not to give you an excuse as to why there are delays. It's not to give you an excuse as to why costs are going up. It's to give you some understanding so you can see what life is like through the eyes of a builder and through the eyes of the Master Builders Association, okay? Many of the people in the construction industry are hurting right now, okay? Many of the tradespeople, they have families just like you, just like I, okay? They need to go to their families every night and explain to them why all of a sudden their job has gotten harder, is taking longer, and in most cases, they're having to get paid less, okay? So I ask you that when you're watching this video that you just show some compassion, some understanding, and not to belittle what you're going through right now as an investor and with regards to the construction of your home, not to belittle that or making significant what it is you're going through, but just to give you some understanding as to why we are in this current position, okay? But also keep in mind why it is that you chose to invest, okay? You chose to invest to create long-term wealth for you, your families, to put yourself in a position where you will have very strong retirement income, where you can improve and enhance the quality of your life, for you, your family, and the people that you care about. So don't take your eye off the ball as to why you did this to start off with, okay? Much of what you're about to listen to right now was something that very few people could see coming, okay? If we could, we would have planned for this much better, as I'm sure you've come to that conclusion. And also keep in mind that for a builder, the longer a job stays uncompleted, the more it costs the builder. So builders have a vested interest in making sure that construction of your job starts on time and is completed as fast as possible. There is absolutely no advantage whatsoever to a builder to delay your job, okay? They're having to deal with many suppliers, many council administrators, many different people within the construction industry right now that have been ravaged by COVID. You take the councils as an example, they've got no staff. You take the banking industry right now. When was the last time you walked into a bank, right? In your local branch, right? Have a look at the amount of people waiting in line versus how many tellers are there to actually serve the public. So industries throughout Australia have been hit hard with labour shortages, and most industries, whether it be the restaurant industry, whether it be even the medical industry, they've been hit very hard with supplies, okay? Many of the builders get their materials from overseas, okay? So when immigration and export and import comes to a halt, it does cause significant delays, okay? So again, please understand, it's not to give you any justification or any excuse, but nothing more than just to give you some understanding as to why we are here, why we're at where we're here, right? Hopefully I've answered most of the questions that you have on your mind with the following video. And please, if you still have further questions, come back to me directly, come back to myself or our staff. We are here to work with you. We ask that we keep the lines of communication open between both of us. And in terms of why we wanted to work with you as a client and hopefully why you wanted to work with us as a business, that's not changed. We are always going to be here for you at Wealth for Life, no matter what happens. You will never, ever be alone. We will always be here for you. We just ask in these difficult times in the construction industry that maybe show some patience, some understanding, some compassion, as I know you have been already. Most of you have been, you have been very understanding. You have been patient. There has been a lot of delays. I know that some of the communication you got from us wasn't what you wanted to hear. I know that it hasn't been perfect when it comes to construction, okay? But as you're about to see, we are in unprecedented times. This is something that's never happened before. And the great thing is that most of the big builders right now seem to have got over the worst of it. And hopefully we're in smooth times moving forward. But if I haven't answered your questions, or if the guys on the video haven't answered your questions, please feel free to communicate with us via email, phone call, and we will get any questions that you have answered. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you get something out of the video that you're about to watch. Thank you.
Pasquale Garofalo, Paz for short, Director of AHB Group, Royston Homes, Sheridan Homes, Soho Living, Mark Property Group are the 4 companies that we have under our brand. We're currently listed as number 2 builder in Victoria.
My name's Mark Little. I'm the current president of Master Builders Victoria. I've held that role for the last 18 months. Prior to that, I was on their board for 2 years, and I run a small domestic building company based out of regional Victoria.
Been in the building industry for 25 years. Have a degree in building and construction, architectural draftsperson, OH&S and safety. Worked previously for a large building company for 10 years. Started my own business with AHB Group. That's been going for 15. I'm also a member of the MBA and HIA. I sit on the housing committee for the MBAV and also on the council for MBAV. I'm part of focus groups with building. I sit with fellow colleagues within the building industry, Metricon Homes, Porter Davis, Simmons, and some of the other builders that are more boutique, Glenville and the like. My experience within the building industry is both with construction, costing, estimating, design, and my business partner who's with me, Charles Aegis, looks after accounting, admin, and overall operations of the business. So we've got a vast experience of what we do in building, and I love it.
Master Builders is Victoria's leading building advocacy group. We've got 6,600 members that we represent, and we've also got a federation, Master Builders Australia. There's all Master Builders groups around New South Wales, South Australia, Tasmania, all those areas. So we find not just Victoria, we have great reach up into Canberra, which I also sit on their national board in Canberra now. So through my involvement with Master Builders goes right back to I Won Apprentice of the Year Awards back in 1998. and I've been involved with master builders. I started at country sector level, I think, back in 2013. So I think I would say I've got pretty extensive knowledge within the building and construction area and what I've seen the industry go through. And obviously, owning and running a small business, I believe my insight is invaluable to our organisation so that I can let people know firsthand, because I'm at the coalface experiencing this and I know what's going on every day. And I wouldn't be here sitting this, saying it, if I didn't understand and fully agree with what Paz is doing. So I wouldn't put my name to it. Challenging, very challenging. We're still experiencing material delays and we're still experiencing severe trade shortages. Everyone's just tapped out. There's just not enough trades and not enough materials out there at the moment.
So we're finding it that our current business, even though we are pushing or meeting demand, we are at a backlog of work that we're trying to catch up, and it's just not enough labour, everything from carpenters, concreters, roof tilers, to catch up on that backlog of work. So the time frame for us to catch back on is chipping away. Rather than our normal build or our segment time, we are definitely further out because of pure labour requirements across the industry completely. I don't think I've known one builder out there, one renovator, one high-rise construction, anybody that's not feeling the supply chain / labour shortage.
And that's not just confined to Melbourne, like that's Australia-wide. So obviously we had the floods in Brisbane recently. They reckon some of those houses will take up to 2 years before they're livable again because of the trades and material shortage. So it's not just confined to Melbourne or Victoria, it's Australia-wide.
So prior to COVID, where a lot of our authorities that we gain information from getting a building permit, we're working from an office, was available and was staffed. With the changes since the pandemic 2 years ago, considering both working from home, vaccination rates, as well as who is still in this industry again, we found anything from gaining a simple water authority certificate that used to take 2 weeks, now takes up to 8 weeks to get council information on simple information about your block of land. Used to take 3 days, now takes up to 4 to 6 weeks. The sheer number of people required to do a soil test used to take us a week, now takes us 4 to 5 weeks. So labour isn't just centred around carpenters, bricklayers and our normal requirements. It's also centred around professionals. We don't have enough engineers, we don't have enough drafties, don't have enough people just running an auger doing a soil test, geotech people. So if you talk to any council are saying they're understaffed. They have enough people to process applications.
Yeah, it's probably once again what Paz said before. There's just not enough carpenters, concreters, painters, plasterers. It's still because the building industry is operating at 110. They've calculated it's running anywhere to 110 to 120% of capacity. So they're behind as well. So everyone's just chasing their tail.
Definitely, and what I call in my own words is we are now going through our own pandemic, COVID problem, where the other people who had lockdown, shut down, couldn't work, we were able to work, and people were great. They were buying houses off us and putting deposits and doing contracts. And what's then happened with the myriad of problems that will come into one, no migration coming in, the sewer canal problem that started a whole shipping chain logistics problem, the Pine and LVL problem, the logistical change problem. People have stayed home that bought online, had made a whole industry out of delivery. People went from working at a cafe or working on site to delivering on a truck. They didn't go back to their original jobs. So I think it was a perfect storm of everything happening at once. We were all worried about just surviving through pandemic. I think the other end, what spat out was, as an economy, we survived, but we pushed pricing up because of demand, which, you know, I think it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of scenario, but that's where we've come at the end. Traditionally, we would go from a site scrape, slab pour, frame would be up, and then the following process would be roof, bricks, that lock up complete, plaster, then fix. Sounds really simple when I say it. Those things as a process, within 2.5 months, we'd be up to a fixing stage. On a single story, 22 square home, 4-bedroom, we had the problems of waffle pot and reinforcement, couldn't get it. So that was a up to 6-week delay of just getting that called up, sometimes 8 weeks. So if I'd start a job today, I'd have to wait 8 weeks before I even get the reinforcement delivered. Frame was taking 6 to 8 weeks from our business. Some were taking up to 16 to 20 weeks in the building industry. Windows were a further 10 to 12 weeks. Roof tiles are a 4 to 5 week when they used to be a 1 week turnaround. We're able to compress it now. It is getting better, but it's still taking us longer times between process to now deliver when it used to be a lot quicker. Mark, I'm sure you're saying from your point of view.
100%. We're hearing it across the board. It's all supply and demand, and there's only so much. As I said, when an industry is, so we'll take timber for example. So as I said before, the building industry is running at 110 to 120% capacity. So Australia only produces enough timber for 80% of our houses. The other 20% is imported. That's Australia-wide. So then through, obviously, bushfires, we had a lot of bushfires, so timber couldn't be harvested, and a lack of imports, then we were running at 65% of imports, 65% manufacturer. So we're running 65%, yet we're running at 110, 120% capacity. So there's like a 45% black hole there that is not getting filled. So we turn to Australia as a whole, imports. So we go, right, Russia's going into its colder months, so obviously through Russia they don't build what they produce because it's so extremely cold, they can't work outside. So Australia goes, great, we'll import some of your timber. Then Russia decides to declare war on Ukraine, and Australia puts a ban on imports from that area. Sanctions, sorry. So, you know, we're just finding, you know, the coalition announced the other day $86 or $90 million package to invest in plantation timber over the next 5 years. Well, that's good, but plantation timber takes 28 to 30 years to harvest. So they're thinking long term, but we're in a lot of hurt right here, right now, and the only solution to that hurt right here, right now is imports.
A builder essentially is someone that grabs trade and supply and brings it all together. And you rely on those partnered people to build your home. When the partnered people don't have timber and they can't get it from anywhere else, there's not much you can do. When the trade is 5 frames back because they've got a part frame here because it wasn't fully delivered because they can't get LVLs, for instance, or, you know, trusses I'm waiting 3 weeks for, so I can't finish my frame, so he jumps to another job so he can do some bit more work and then jump back to another job to try and finish it because they're waiting for the material to come. And then the chain reaction is I can't get my roof tile on until I get my trusses complete. I haven't put my windows in yet because that's delayed, so I can't put my bricks in. So it's all a sequence of events that what we all wait for as the industry. It employs a lot of people. but it needed a lot more to service what we needed. You know, even if we didn't have our lockdowns, and even if we didn't have our bits in Australia, I still think we would have the same problem, because we didn't have migration coming in, because the problems with the shipping, because of the problems of, you know, Russia having a war, US having their large own homeowner builder grants to stimulate the economy, which then spurred pricing up. So I think as much lockdowns would have been nice to open up earlier, I still think that this problem would have still risen its head by now and facing these problems.
Absolutely. There's probably two parts to that. I'm talking to trades out there that are working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're not getting ahead. For every 2 purchase orders they knock over in those 7 days, they're getting another 4 come in. So there's only a certain trade base that can service that. And as Paz said, you know, America spent $1 trillion on their stimulus. Our stimulus isn't much compared to that. So that's where a lot of the priority of materials has gone. When a country like America spends $1 trillion, you'll get a shipping container that will go to, I don't think it's Shanghai, there's a port in China, and a shipping container that used to go for $4,000 or $5,000 is now going for anywhere between $18,000 to $22,000. So if you're the successful bidder on that container, you're forced to pass on, as a wholesaler to your suppliers, you're forced to pass on that. But the benefit is they're getting materials. But the connies, they're paying a high price to get those materials. And if they didn't pay that, then America gets it and we miss out. So you've got homeowners waiting longer for their houses to get built. So it's a really vicious circle that we're in at the moment.
And just to finish off with that, it's amazing how our industry has now become expert on lumber indexes, shipping pricing, container pricing, quarantining, understand where the ship's coming from, when it's arriving. And this is how far reach our industry need to become to understand what we're going against. Because you can't just read this up on any paper. You can't check this on any website. But we all needed to know what was coming up, what we were facing. And as this started to roll on, one thing uncovered after another, after another, after another. And it was no textbook, there was no, and I think I explained this once before to you, Anthony, where in the past we've seen snippets of some of these delays. There was a stage we couldn't find bricklayers, but it was only bricklayers. We couldn't find roof tile companies, roof tilers. It was only roof tiles. There was a spot where we couldn't get plaster. But we found it in the last year, all of it's come, and more so. So as much as we've dealt with problems before in the past, this is something that we've not seen. And I think as an industry outside of building, if you talk to anybody that owns a restaurant, anybody that owns a hotel, anybody that runs a small business or large, finding staff generally, finding work generally, workers generally, is really, really difficult. So I don't think we're alone in that space. But it just puts a lot of downward pressure on, upward pressure on price. That's a really good question, because I'm a builder and I want to make sure we do the right thing as well by people. But
it's tough.
I think our site managers, our construction managers, our building managers, our carpenters, our people, we're working harder to make sure the quality is up there. I think people are happier just to move on quickly and get to the next job, which then always comes up with not having a complete job done properly sometimes. I feel for my site managers because they are working harder because they're trying to make sure the quality is right. And I use the word trying. We are people. Mistakes happen. I don't think it's intentional, but I think quality can still be kept at a certain level, but it just needs probably additional supervision to make sure we get to that point. I don't know, Mark, if you can add to that.
Yeah, once again, it just comes back to, as we said before, when you've got trades that are working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, people get fatigued, but the problem is if they have a day off, then they lose a day. So they're even further behind, knocking over 2 purchase orders and getting another 4, we have a couple of days off, you're behind. So they're trying to, but people get fatigued, and I say it to everyone, we're all human, we all make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes in their jobs that they play and do. We're all human, we make mistakes. So, but the benefit is being able to put your hand up, own that mistake, and go back and rectify it. That's the key is to this, because everyone's fatigued, everyone's tired. As much as everyone says we were lucky in the building industry, we got to work through COVID, we were very fortunate. But we've gone from one extreme to the other, and we've been fighting this, and I would say a lot harder than a lot of other people for over 2 years now. We've gone from trying to keep our businesses afloat for 15 months to having more work than we can poke a stick at and trying to keep a lid on it and keep control of it for 15 months. So it's a really challenging environment.
Obviously, as a builder, I'm a bit more biased. But, I guess what comes with buying something that's brand new, you know what's getting built. You don't know what someone's left over while buying established. The warranties that come with it. The comfort that the builder's built it and the person that's involved with it has been through the whole process of what's going on with it. The warranties stick with the builder, with the client in terms of cosmetic. Sure, there's a structural warranty that goes with it. You buy established. Sometimes if it changes hand too many times, those things get left behind. So structurally, you can't go to anybody else when you're buying established. The established market can be up and down as much as, where it's a bit more. We've never seen, this is the first time building's ever seen something like this. And I beg the question whether we'll see something like this again or not. I tend to think that this has been I hate to say the word, egalisation of the industry itself. With world, Australia's been isolated a lot because of an island, and I really believe that we've gone up to parity or come up to a bit more balancing with other countries around the world. So this is where I think that our pricing has now got to a point where it's levelled off, and I think we're by open migration, and hopefully some laws that we have to get people back to work that probably wouldn't be working normally. You'll see a normality happening with that and something coming back. I just think sometimes established suits some people, but it comes with extra work. And I think some of the tax benefits you get from building brand new is a lot stronger than building something established. Not that I'm a tax expert by no stretch. Mark, any?
We at Master Builders have done studies, and once again, we believe that every dollar spent in building and construction equates to $3 to the economy. So while we're still in recovery mode, it's critical because that $3 goes to couches and TVs and landscaping and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's still, while we're not out of the woods yet, recovery is still there, I think that's a critical thing to think about moving forward.
Well, from my point of view, I think the other things that will be getting worse, or the pressure that will be there, things like petrol pricing, I can't say that I've got an answer for that, which then affects people that work within it. What I do think is we're starting to level off that what we can see in a foreseeable future. We're hearing, I'm seeing the ABS data that's building approvals are starting to slow a bit, which should alleviate some of the pressures that we're having within building. The ships are coming. We're getting deliveries. It's not as hard. We do have a problem with some of the LVLs still, which is our lintels and beams that we use in our houses, because it does come from Russia and they produce about 60% of the world's requirements. Besides that, I tend to think that we're nearly through the worst in terms of price pressure. Labor's still going to be one that we're going to be watching or trying to get skilled up. I think they'll take a little bit more time. By time, I'm thinking, as it softens a bit, as it alleviates that pressure on people. My gut tells me by definitely this time next year, and hopefully sooner, we should see a little bit of a breathing space for us all.
It's definitely plateaued, or it's plateauing. So we want to get to that point with the subcontractors where they're completing 2 purchase orders and they're getting 2 purchase orders. Or, you know, that means we're plateauing sort of thing, and they can get through a bit of their backlog. And I think what we forget as well, this is once again not just confined to building and construction. I was talking to a car dealership the other day, and they've got that many orders in. For them to get back to even, they would not have to sell a car for 12 months. Not sell a single car for 12 months to get back to parity. So once again, it's not just building and construction, it's just every industry around. So I think we're starting to get to that plateau. Once we get to that plateau, we need to keep it there for a while, and then that will enable us to try and get back on top of these things.
And I think we're just got to be mindful of when we do talk about what's coming back or what's going to be, what we think is going to be okay. Certain sectors of our building industry will become stronger than others. I think metro area will recover a little bit quicker and start stabilising a little quicker. I think regional areas are still hurting a bit more. I think they'll take a bit longer to come back. It's unprecedented how many people have bought properties in regional areas because of whether lockdown, tree change, the whole thing. Geelong, our Ballarat Peninsula, your Bendigo, northern area, your Ballarats, your Echukas,
even Warrnambool.
You're seeing an increase of people moving their new homes being built. What didn't come with it was the trade base that grew. So they'll take time. But as people start to move in, as people start to live in those areas, it will catch up. I just don't think it will catch up as quick as what the city smoke or the larger suburbs around Melbourne catch up with. But it will catch up. Because as it transitions and people start to move in and live in those areas, you'll start to see work coming into those areas as well. It's a good question, isn't it? we got parts of our special conditions that have cost escalation in price only fixed for a certain period of time in our special conditions in our contract. The contract itself is ideally centred around a fixed price contract. But in this climate, in what we're seeing, the client has unfortunately 2 options: to build, take, accept unfortunately the price rise. We use sometimes the special conditions, or we just tell the client the truth that this is unprecedented what we've seen, and it's just not worth just going backwards. And the unfortunate part is we talk about a relief or a push to get more regular in terms of how we build. I just don't see prices coming back. So I think we've now set the index of what the pricing is for our builds. I think people have now, you talk about inflation, the contractors get inflation too. So it's not just centred around mum and dads. The mum and dads are carpenters, the mum and dads are painters. They also feel of cost of living as well as everybody else. So as prices have gone up, how do you expect them to get money back when the pressure of everything else of inflation's gone up?
It's a really, really ordinary position to be in, because consumers need builders and builders need consumers. And it's such an ordinary position to be in, because you don't want to have to charge a client more. All you want is for the client to pay what it costs That's all you want to cover your costs at the end of the day when you build a house. The client needs to understand if they don't pay these additional costs, there is numerous articles you can find online where builders have failed to pass on these costs to clients. And when you're running a business, yeah, you need to be profitable. At the end of the day, you've got to be profitable. You've got to build a house to a standard for a client, get them happy, but you've got to be profitable or you're not going to be around. So there's cases where builders haven't passed on costs to consumers and the builder goes bust and clients are sitting there with half-finished houses, and that is just the worst position for anyone to be in. It is just so bad. So, as I said, it's just such an ordinary position to be in.
Depending on when it was signed up, and you know, if they're signed up in more recent, you'll find, and Anthony can vouch for that, we're not going back to those particular contracts. We're only going ones that are approximately a year old or older, because that's unfortunately we weren't able to read the market or understand that these prices were going where they're going. And traditionally, as you know yourself, we haven't been the type of person to stick pricing really quickly up because we want to be competitive out there. But if a title blows out a little bit, we're not going after every single one we can find. But if something becomes 12, 18 months, 2 years, we just have no choice. If prices start to relax and they just start stable, the ones that we've sold recently or within 6 months, we may be able to swing them around, but that's around it. So if a client decides to cancel a contract and says, oh, I don't want to pay it, I want to cancel, if we've set money in on the build, getting the permits and getting that permit up to permit stage, and whether it's a soil test or engineering, their costs that were borne. If there's commissions paid, if there's administration fees that we have, so those things are going to be covered if you're going to cancel a contract. My argument to this is if you cancel it and then look at the market again, you'll find the prices are higher anyway than what you probably pay with us by paying the extra. Only because everybody's gone up, and Mark can vouch for that. So, it'll be really unfortunate we have to cancel it. There are going to be costs borne that have to be paid, which is unfortunate. But we're not trying to take the full deposit. If it's only spend a little bit of money, we give the money back to the clients what's left over and move on. But if you look at what we're trying to charge versus what's other people out there charging now for the same home, you think twice, I think. Usually with variations of this type of thing, whether it's midship of the build cycle or depending how large it is, we spread it over a couple of months over that time until we finish. We're happy to work with people on that. Probably, unless there's a whole world recession and everything pulls back in pricing, I just don't see, like I said before, I just can't see pricing pulling back. It's very rare that you see anything that goes to a price and then pulls right back. Even history tells you even house prices don't go that far back when a recession I wouldn't say recession is probably the wrong word, but when a slowdown happens, you don't see house prices pulling back that far. So, Mark will probably tell you over his history of building too, but you never ever see something pull back. You might get a little bit of alleviation, but not. I think the price that we used to see are long gone.
It is, as we said before, it goes, then plateaus, then goes. So I was talking to my father a couple of weeks ago, and he told me a story about my grandfather built a house in Bendigo back in the late 50s, returned serviceman from World War II. that was another time. That was the last time. The times we've had now have never been seen before, unprecedented. The only thing close to that was obviously that period back then. And my grandfather had to buy a bit of timber, work on the house. Then he had to wait a couple of weeks to get more timber, work on the house. Had to wait some weeks, do weatherboards, wait weeks, do... So what we're seeing now, in that life cycle of generations, that's how far back we have to go to even come close to comparing that or have something similar. So I've never seen prices ever come down. I've never had a supplier, hey, you know, because of X, Y, Z, prices are coming down. I've never had a subby come and say, hey, because you're a good payer or, you know, whatever, we're going to drop our prices. It just plateaus.
And I guess we've got to also be mindful as suppliers, not so much contractors, but suppliers, and some contractors, to be fair, have taken a price rise up. They've also had some hurt in between that. So if it does come back a little bit, it's just going to offset what they've lost. I know a lot of my guys, a lot of my suppliers, probably haven't made, even though prices have gone up, haven't made money for their year and a half or two. So we're all feeling it in terms of that. We're building for near nothing sometimes, and you know we're employing people. We want to keep our staff. We want to try and keep people as happy as we possibly can. And a detriment is that whether it's profitable or not is at the end of it all. Also to understand that the 2-3 lockdowns that we did have last year had effect also because cash flow stopped on those times when we never had that before. And you know, for 2 weeks you still pay your staff. It's always a bit tough. So you know, it is challenging to make sure that we're going to be doing the right thing, and our suppliers are doing the right thing. And you know, if it does soften up a little bit, I think they'll just take the little bit of extra they can and you know, pay off for what they didn't get before. From Slab onwards, in metro area, and I'm trying to break this up as best as I can. So metro area is a single story where we used to be a 4.5 month to 5 month build. We are now a 5.5 to 6.5 month build. Double stories are moving from 8 to 9 months, give or take. In regional areas, it's taken us a bit longer. So we're looking anything from 6 to 7s. When you know metro's 5 to 6s, it's all taking a little bit longer that we had. So that's the averages we're looking at. Some areas are a little bit longer, and some can be a little bit shorter. So that's the average I think we look at on the market, see from his personal point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're hearing from a lot of people, there's a lot of varied, but if we said on average, 180-day build time, it's not uncommon to hear a 360-day build time now. It's just, or you hear of people, they'll have 5 or 6 slabs go down, and then they're waiting 12 or 16 weeks for wall frames. So everything's...
We're not in that same position. So.
No, but I'm just talking about the stories I hear from around Victoria.
9 to 10 months, give or take, yep. And with the industry average, but I think the average industry...
Some of the smaller guys, because obviously some of the materials are, the bigger you are, the more you get the materials, the smaller you go. I've heard of guys that are... there was even a story online the other day. There's a builder shutting up his business. He's had enough. Can't get materials, can't get trades, costing too much. So he's just going, you know what, for 2 years, I've had enough. I'm shutting down my business. We don't want to see people ending their livelihoods because that's it's just crazy. But once again, for smaller blokes like that, a build that used to take 12 months is probably taking 18 months now. So we don't want to see people ending their livelihoods because that's a massive sacrifice that these guys are making.
Agreed. This is an ongoing piece of work that we're working on now. So we're getting reconnected with our partners, trying to get our priorities set higher than who else they're dealing with, due to the relationships that we do have. Some of the guys are now bringing times in for us. They've found more labour. We've worked with them to pay more for that labour, to make sure that we can get our times back in check, and really we've employed more staff within our business to push jobs that are pre-site, so we can then meet the demand of what we've got and catch up with the stuff that, you know, is unforeseen. You know, sometimes you look at even titles where you're relying on titles to come out and they keep bringing in delayed. Then all of a sudden you get a whoosh of everything. You know, you can't plan those type of things, so you just got to service that with just more people. Well, like everything, right? So someone that works, a subcontractor doesn't get paid by us weekly. They get paid per job. If the job's not there, they don't get paid. They go somewhere else looking. I've never seen one of our subcontractors stay home for a week and not get paid.
I've heard of builders walking streets of new estates, and they'll see a chippy gang and they'll offer them 20% more than what they're getting to try and get them over, because people are struggling to find labour, and the only way to get the labour is to pay more for that labour. So it's a bidding war. So I've heard of that happen. Concreters, I've heard of that happen where, you know, someone will pull up out the front, say, hey, who are you working for? What are you getting paid? Well, I'll pay you this if you want to come and do this. So it comes down to relationships. And it's not just relationships with the builder and the trades, it's a relationship with your clients as well. So, you know, it's just everything I always say to everyone I ever talk to. As I said before, it's challenging times. Just no matter where you go, you're going to get the same thing. Just work with the person that you're dealing with, and just work, because it's challenging times. Try and make the best of those challenging times.
It's always hard to see from the outside, but you know, I think asking the questions of how's your supply chain, how's your labour in where you work, how long does it take to get windows? And they're just simple little questions that are out there. Whether they tell you the truth or not is another question. I think a lot of the builders now have become a lot more truthful, because they're all hurting, and there's no use trying to tell people different time frames. That's just going to get the contract in and then have the fight on the other side. So, you know, if you go to the master builders, they've got questionnaires that they have to ask about your question, and you know what to look for in a builder, which I'll hand to Mark.
Go to Master Builder's website, go to their socials. You'll see time and time again the press releases, the e-newsletters. Master Builder's followers on social media has skyrocketed, and it's not just from people in the trade, it's from homeowners as well, because we've been giving people accurate, prompt, up-to-date information. When we're in lockdown, as soon as the lockdown happened, we'd be a couple of hours with an e-newsletter, and not just an e-newsletter, on our socials. So we've got homeowners following Master Builders just to keep engaged. And back to what Paz was saying before, people are savvy now. If you go to a display village and someone says, oh yeah, I can start your house in 6 weeks, and you drive around and you see a slab sitting there, and then the next week a slab sitting there, you're going to know. People are that educated and smart now. There's ways to find these things out. But as I said, we pride ourselves as an organisation. Yeah, we're there. We represent, you know, builders, but obviously we're proud of the information that we can to support the builders, which supports the homeowners as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the word of trust, isn't it? You know, if they're financially strong and you trust that builder to deliver what you need to be delivered. I don't know how you check how financially strong a builder is. You know, there's checks and measures for the larger builders like us that have, you know, been audited, and you know, we do get audited by ASIC, and we get audited by the ATO all the time to make sure we're all doing the right thing, and we're not trading insolvent and all that kind of stuff. But I think You know, it comes back to getting some referees, getting some referrals from other clientele that's built with them, trusting a brand that's been around, how long they've been in business for. You know, I'm all for, you know, encouraging new and young builders to come through, but, you know, sometimes you just got to pick when you start your business and see if you can financially do it. But I think it's really important to understand how strong, how long they've been around for, because you'll find a lot of the builders that are still around now have been around for a long time. It's unfortunate the ones that have gone by the wayside, and that includes some of the bigger ones that have been around, like Pro Build, they're commercial. They've been around for a long time, but, you know, it's just situations that change. So all I can say is ask the question, how long they've been, same company, check those parts out, go back to the master builders, ask about that builder. Are they a master builder? If they're not, you know, you'd question that. There's also HIA, of course, but I'm not going to say it in front of Mark.
I was about to say that. I might be a bit biased. The only thing you should be asking is the hashtag, is your builder a master builder?
If I can answer the question by saying I found vulnerability within the industry. And what I've learned that from an industry as big as we are, and I think we make up, if it's not one, it's number two of the economy of the whole of Australia, that we are so vulnerable to supply chain, you know, and really, and I'm trying to bring confidence to this, whereas I'm telling you, but, you know, I couldn't have figured out how to get timber otherwise.
Being an island nation, we should be so self-sufficient, but we're actually not. And as we said, people say the perfect storm. I hate the word perfect because perfect is good. This is not perfect in any form. And because of COVID, as I said, those sawmills stood down people because people weren't building houses. So they stood down workers to not make timber. And then once they launched Home Builder, everyone said it was like a light switch. Yeah. Click, bang, we're on. So we had to go from, as I said before, 65% operational to 120% operational in the flick of a light switch. So I think what we have to learn for is obviously manufacturing. We have to be protective of ourselves a lot more.
So yeah, price pressures now, probably our suppliers got caught napping. You know, not realising, we should be right.
But does anyone hold stock anymore?
No.
The cost of holding stock is so expensive now, so no one holds any stock.
Yeah, and so to answer that question, I think we're a lot more alerted now to change what we could have changed before. You know, sure, we could have ramped prices up quicker, but I don't think we would have caught the old contracts because we were so entrenched during the pandemic of just getting to work and servicing clients because of the grant. They're not realising what ramifications come with that. You know, we've got to understand that we forget that the world locked down. Plants locked down. Manufacturing locked down, not just in Australia, but around the world. The containers, the reason why container prices went up was they thought the pandemic would slow things down. So they got rid of all the old containers they were using because they were old. So we'll just make new ones as it ramps up again. But it never slowed. And what happened, it caught everybody off guard because everyone was waiting for a slowdown because of the pandemic. But it wasn't a fiscal, it wasn't a money problem. It was a disease-borne medical problem. So it just no one really understood it. So to learn from this would be, for me, is to understand what my suppliers' vulnerabilities are, to make sure that their vulnerabilities are lessened. So when something like this comes again, you've got more of a sure idea about how you do it. They've changed the way they do it. They're doing business as well. How we handle current pricing versus orders that are on site. To understand growth in any industry itself. So they're the vulnerabilities I kind of see. We're looking at training some people up and bringing traineeships back and getting people back onto that part. I think we as industry need to start looking to our own and start to retrain people up in our industry. So I love to say that the thing I've learned is just to be more connected and be understanding, and to get our suppliers more understanding of what they're expected of, to see that they get caught out. I think patience. We really understand and we get where our clients are hurting. We are a service-based business and we have to service our clientele. But as it gets tougher, the pressures of work for both, doesn't if you're a cleaner, a carpenter, site manager, interior decorator, an owner, we're all feeling the pressure of what's happening out there. And our workplace then is susceptible to people getting angry, people getting frustrated. Workplace pressure does it as well to deliver from both deliverables requirements as well as client expectations. So I guess I come to our clientele to give some leniency on what we're going through as an industry. We're trying the best we can. And as well as everybody else in other industries are doing the same thing, is just to work with our clientele, we'll work in with our clientele and try and deliver as quick as we can with the utmost highest of quality as we can. One thing is sure, if you've agreed something on that price and you've done it, that we're not coming back to do it again. We're just going to try and build this home. And you hear horror stories of people going after clients during construction. In Queensland, there's a couple of builders doing it right now. Current Affair had a builder going a client for about $45,000 or $50,000, and it was up the lock-up stage or something. I can safely assure you we're not doing that whatsoever. We're giving the client the option. But with a little bit of patience, once the house is complete and you're doing your investment or you're living in that home, this will be forgotten. So if you just be patient with our guys, we're doing a lot of training with our clients, with our own people, to deal with their work pressure, to make sure that we're responding as quick as we can to clientele. And to be understanding of how many times we're rejuggling our set of building a home, because things get changed, they get delayed, people don't turn up, or they're pushed somewhere else, or got delayed from job private, and they're rebooking and they're rebooking and they're rebooking. So patience is probably the best word I can use, and just a little bit of empathy when talking to people, because everyone, both our clients that I know they're under pressure themselves, from their workplace, from what they're doing, put themselves in their shoes of if they were working in this against it, it'd be the same thing.
I'd say the same thing. It's about relationships, engagement. Talk to your builder. Understand that it's not just you. It is everyone that's involved with the process of building your house is under pressure at the moment. I understand you, the homeowner, is under pressure, the carpenter's under pressure, the builder's under pressure, the site managers. Just try and work out a way to get the relationship as amicable as possible. And I get so many phone calls and emails from builders from all around Victoria. And I speak to so many builders and emails around Victoria every week. And I say the same thing, just communicate with your client, because it's not that hard to provide them with evidence online of what's been happening. And you know from yourself, the last thing you get when you ring up and abuse someone, yeah, you feel better yourself, but then you feel like a piece of shit about an hour later once all the heat comes out of it. So just try and take a step back and understand the process, that it's not just you. This is not just Melbourne, this is not just Victoria, this is Australia-wide, and it's not just your builder, it's other builders are all going through. So if you can try and set up a good relationship, I always say that, similar to what Paz says before, you get more out of a relationship than a cheap price. So form a relationship with your point of contacts and just check in with them. If you don't hear anything, please try and be patient. As Paz said, patience and relationship. I'm sure if they find something out, they'll let you know. I know from my point of view, I run a small business. It's about engagement with our clients, keeping them educated and updated as things change, because, as I said before, it is just challenging. The best word to describe it is just challenging times.